Hello and welcome to Jedi the Mailman. It is great to be back. This is the show where two old friends aim to deliver the best Star Wars talk in the galaxy. I'm Mike the Mailman. That's Jimmy the Jedi. And tonight, we're going to go back a few months to February 11th. Jimmy and I were on here talking about an article published in CBR.com. And Jimmy said, and I quote, "I know I've been bashing this fool, but he'll never know." Well, it turns out Jimmy was very, very wrong. So let's welcome to the show the author of that article and a new book of essays on the two biggest franchises with Star in the title. Welcome, everybody, Mr. Joshua Patton.
Hello, sir.
Hello. It is an absolute joy to be here.
Happy to
Oh,
have
my
you. Happy to
goodness.
have you.
I first and foremost, I need to clear the air. I owe Josh an apology. I would like to say that I was coming off of student teacher conferences, so I was not in a good mood. But I am super pumped that we get to have this conversation. What's one thing we always talk about here on the show is that like everyone's allowed to have their opinion, and the fact that you found us, reached out, fellow Yinzer. I mean, I kind of want to talk some Aaron Rodgers and things like that real quick, but we'll get into Star Wars. Josh, thanks for reaching out.
Before we get into Joshua's backstory, I wanted to just ask real quick. Jimmy brought this up. How did you come across us? Do you have like a Google setting for tiny podcasts that talk about my articles, or
no? So
how did it come up?
Oh, if only that would be so nice. No, I think what happened was because I was looking on YouTube for stuff about like Star Wars, Disney strategy, stuff like that. You know how the algorithm, and so it came up, and I saw Jedi the Mailman, and I thought, oh, my little light fell over, and I just added it to watch later. Like, oh, I'll check that out when I get some time. And lo and behold, when it came up in the playlist, I was like, hey, I know that guy that they're talking about. He's very handsome and
That's
usually
amazing.
makes great points. But no, Jimmy, no. First of all, any writer just wants someone to have a reaction to something they write. So the fact that I made you feel strongly one way or another was already a delight, and nothing you said was out of pocket. I mean, you landed some very fair body blows on perhaps something I wasn't even aware of in terms of, because I try very hard to not be negative, because I am lucky enough that it is my job to think too deeply about whimsy. Star Trek, Star Wars, superheroes, all that stuff. And I know that you guys talk about it being online, there is a tenor to the discourse, an intensity perhaps. And I don't know if it's just because we're all sort of the same generation, but this stuff's supposed to be fun. Like, there's, and that's, so that's why I was happy to reach out and say, well, let's talk about, how that article made you feel.
Blown away by that. I'm pumped though. I mean, it's not like, I'm not like, oh no, he found us. I was like, well, this is crazy. So,
no, we've been pretty excited about it. And even after, like, I listened back to that just to, I think Jimmy did too, just to see what did we say and kind of get an idea. And it just amazed me that was, I mean, we almost didn't record that night because I'd been in the ER all day because I slipped and fell the day before and wrecked my knee. And then we got on and started recording, and I'm like, man, if anybody can make it through 10 minutes of this, because my audio that night was just laggy and terrible. It was awful. But still, like you said, it's amazing how the Force wills things, It was meant to be, and here we are. And yeah, we'll get on to talking about this thing. But first, Joshua, why don't you let our couple fans know who you are, what you're from, your whole backstory, and what led you to this great job where you talk about all this fun stuff.
Sure. Well, I'll start at the very beginning. I don't know if I feel like I gained sentience watching Return of the Jedi in the movie theaters.
Wow.
When I hear, especially when I hear Yub Nub into the ending fanfare, I get a visceral sense memory sitting in the theater, looking up at the screen and thinking, like, holding two opposing thoughts. I had just seen the coolest thing in the entire world, and it was over. There wasn't going to be any more.
Right.
So now where we are, the prequels came, and obviously, yeah, that was wrong. But that sort of, I think, frames how I approach every new Star Wars thing, because there's that kid looking up at the screen thinking we weren't ever going to get any more. So he always gets at least 1 or 2 votes.
Yeah.
But
That's
no, I
don't want to, I'm sorry to
Oh, no,
interrupt you
please
too,
go.
but that is just such an amazing feeling that no one will get now. You know what I mean? Like anybody, anywhere now, if you just watched an amazing movie, you could turn around and watch it again in that same theater. Like Jimmy, how many times did you see, was it not Rise of Skywalker, but, or was it Rise of Skywalker? You just
Yeah, I saw
turned around
that
and went
one.
right back into the theater. And,
Yeah, usually.
or you wait 3 months and it's on streaming and you can watch it a billion times. But you're right. Like we're from that generation. We all experienced that, where you saw something in a theater and all you could do was go talk to your buddies about it. And maybe you got to go next Friday again if it's not out of the theater or whatever. But yeah, you don't get that opportunity like we did. But that's amazing.
Do you guys remember those things I think they had them. I don't know if they were like promo or what shows they were on, but they would be like about how they did the visual effects for like Star Wars. I remember there was one with, I think, Billy D. Williams hosted with like the Jabba puppet. And then I remember there was one about the Indiana Jones Temple of Doom minecart chase. And I remember watching those, like, because they would come on every so often, and that would you'd get a taste of the movie. You get a little taste of it.
Yeah, for real. But yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Continue with your story,
no, please, because I'll talk the whole time. No, I didn't. So I got into writing pretty early. I for about 20 years or so, I was a stringer news reporter, political beat, policy beat, government. All the stuff Star Wars is about.
Right.
And I started doing it full time in 2008, and I quit doing it full time in 2017. I'm sure if everyone does the math, they can guess maybe why that was. And I then pivoted again. It was a risky thing to do. It was, it's hard to break into, but I got lucky, pivoted into entertainment, and I've any chance I could over the past 20 years. That's what the book for the paperback book, the Divided Allegiance, the Third Waves of Star Wars and Star Trek. Any chance I got to write about these things, even for like $5-10, I would do it. But luckily I've ended up at a place where I I get to do it all the time, with other great writers who love Star Wars.
You must be a much saner, happier person.
Oh, so much so, yes. I mean, it's not without contention, though. I'll tell you that.
Right.
It's
well,
definitely not without contention. But
but the stakes aren't quite as high, are they?
No. But yeah, I've been doing this pretty much full time since 2017, writing about
That's awesome.
Star Trek, Star Wars, superhero stuff. I do some anything genre. I also review The Rookie because my mom likes it and she'll read those articles.
My daughter was just binging that series.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah,
huh?
I love some Nathan Fillion though. So
Nathan Fillion's great.
Yeah,
he never got the opportunity he deserved. He could have been a leading man for sure.
Well, he's about to be in a big movie come July.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Terrible hair.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So why don't you tell us a little bit then? Is Return of the Jedi, is that where it starts for you? Like, because you're kind of our age, so like Mike and I, my dad took Mike and I to see Return of the Jedi in the theater, and then of course, like you said, the Dark Times. I mean, we waited for years, and always a Star Wars fan, but it's not like it is today, where there wasn't this. You know what I mean? Can you tell us a little bit about like your Star Wars journey?
I don't quite remember where I first saw them. Now I grew up in we're gonna get real local for all you Western PA folks. I grew up in a town called Bellevue, which is right near the north side of Pittsburgh. And
I lived there for a little while.
Excellent. Less than a block from where I live, where a Family Dollar stands now, was a movie theater. And it was a third-run movie theater. And again, for you kids who, 3 months later it's on streaming, you used to have your first run movie theater where it'd be for like 3 months, and then like 6 to 9 months it'd be in a second run movie theater, which I don't remember where I think those were the first ones to go. And then you had your third run movie theater, also known as the dollar movie theater sometimes.
I love those theaters.
Yeah, and I think, I don't think they were allowed to, but I think because it was where all the reels ended up, they had all the Star Wars. I think I have vague memories of going to see all of them like in a week or in a weekend
Yeah.
at that theater. But as I sort of was writing in that article, my main experience with Star Wars was, I believe, taping at least Empire Strikes Back off of that
Yeah.
ABC. When it aired on ABC, they had the extra Darth Vader video.
Hmm.
So yeah, when we finally got like a VCR, just watching those tapes over and over again.
Yeah.
I grew up with 6 hours of Star Wars. Now we get 6 hours every 6 months,
Yeah.
or at least we did.
Yeah.
That may be
I
stopped.
still have the original trilogy on VHS in a cabinet
The,
somewhere.
the gold box, the gold one.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
The
that's
gold.
the one I
Yep.
have too.
Gold set. Yep.
All right.
But yeah.
All right. So let's talk about what brought us all together. Oh, go ahead.
Sure. I was just gonna say, I was a teenager, 1920 when the prequels came out. And it wasn't
1920.
until seeing the Revenge of the Sith while on deployment with the military that the prequels really solidified for me as like being good. I admit to being conflicted about them, but I grew up when my favorite, Return of the Jedi, was the bad Star Wars movie. So
Yeah.
I
I never got
I was
that.
used to going rounds with kids about which Star Wars was better. Boba Fett's a punk.
Oh,
yeah, I gotta
man.
say the prequels still haven't solidified as good movies for me yet. I mean,
I'll work
after
on you, Mike.
Yeah, okay.
I think Clone Wars helped me a ton.
Yeah,
Clone
me too,
Wars.
for sure. Like I totally appreciate that whole era now, but I can't say that I go back and watch those movies with fond memories or like really have to go see them. That's another down the line, Jimmy. It might be a topic for us. Is rewatching the prequel trilogy.
I'm always
And
down.
those are easy topics. Oh, I got to watch
Yeah.
a movie this weekend and talk about it on Tuesday.
But yeah, the Clone Wars, that in fact, again, not to keep bringing it up, but that was what I talked about in that article, was how that for a significant number of like prequel era kids, along with seeing the movies on TV and then later streaming, Clone Wars was the new Star Wars. Like Star Wars was very much a TV based thing.
Yeah.
We think of that moment, of seeing it in the theater and how what a spectacle it was. But, just because it's on TV, like that, again, maybe it's just because of how I came up. But when it's on TV, I'm like, oh, how lucky are we? Star Wars is on TV. How lucky.
When did you watch Clone Wars as they aired on Cartoon Network, or did you binge them later when they came on streaming?
No, I watched it as I went to the movie and saw it in the theater. And it was like, this is not for me. I went in knowing what this is for kids, good for them. But it was free. It was on cable. And the second Yoda was like, take off your helmets, distinct in the Force you all are. I was like, oh, right in my veins. This is Star Wars. And then I found out Dave Filoni, fellow Yinzer, was big involved in this. And
we got to get him on here one time.
get real local. Ming Na too. Have all the Pittsburgh Star Wars people.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's talk about this article. All right, so I'm looking for the date. So here it is, February 9th, 2025. I'm disappointed with Disney Star Wars strategy based on these recent announcements, but there's a way to fix it. So let's dive into this article, shall we?
This came out on the 9th, and we talked about it on the 11th. So this was fresh, hot stuff.
Hot off
we were
the
talking
presses.
about it.
The only point of contention that I have with the entire thing was that after I think Jimmy was concerned that anyone watching was no longer cared nearly as much about my article as he did. He kind of summarized it and said that I said that saying that Mandalorian and Grogu going to the movies was not a great idea, which is not the case. I think that is the best. If you're going to do a movie, that's the one, because it's if you look at the box office lately, and this is what I'm disappointed about, is the way that everyone's acting like the box office is somehow magically back to pre-COVID levels, pre-pandemic levels. It is not. I mean, Thunderbolts, to switch to the MCU, but it's like the closest thing we have to compare it. Thunderbolts was the best reviewed. The vibe around it. No, I mean, I rarely saw anyone have a bad thing to say about it.
Yeah.
After a string of releases. And again, this may have changed in the past weekend, but when I was writing about the box office last week, that article's up on CBR now. It was the only Phase 4 movie, or the only recent movie that earned lower at the box office was The Marvels, which was coming off the strike and, barely earned anything.
Right.
So the things that have made money for them have been the things that had your old X-Men in it, your old Spider-Man. I mean, look at this Avengers movie they're planning. It's bringing everybody back.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, so if you did the sequels now, they would probably still make around $1 billion. Force Awakens probably isn't doing 2. Maybe it would. Right. I don't know. I mean, Force Awakens was special. Like, that was just such a moment.
Yeah.
It was all potential then.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that, Disney's plan to not lower the budget. Like, instead of throwing $250 million at something like The Acolyte, they're going to throw $300 million, $400 million at something like Starfighter, which, hey, I'll be there to see it. You ain't got to win me over. But is that going to be, this brand new Star Wars movie? Is it going to be one of those things that grabs the zeitgeist? Is it going to reinvigorate the franchise? I mean, I don't know. I hope. And that I think didn't come across in the article, is that I do hope that I was wrong about that. Like, I would love for people to just be happy about all this stuff we have, whether you like it or not. Just, I don't know. I think the world's better with more goofy sci-fi, fantasy, empathetic stories in it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Something out there for everyone.
Yeah. But I do think that, like, for a lot of people, even in the sequel generation, TV is where Star Wars can mess around, So instead of throwing $250 million at a show, throw $80 million at 6 episodes. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, do something small. I mean, I hate it, may be sacrilege, but look at Star Trek. Like, Star Trek, when they were doing movies, they did very low budgets and, still had ILM doing the effects in most cases. And, you do that for streaming, however they calculate the wins and losses there is going to be a lot less than, say, how they do with something like The Acolyte, which, I think it has sort of an unfair reputation about, the quality of the show and what it was. I mean, it's funny. I have to imagine that somewhere in Lucasfilm, there are people like, we are giving them exactly what they asked for. Like, I remember before Mandalorian came out, before we knew Grogu existed, people were like, oh, we're going to see a bunch of Mandalorians fighting in a war, retaking Mandalore. And they didn't give us that. But then season 3, they're like, here's that thing you asked for. Everyone's like, boo, boring, boo.
Yeah.
And then they're like, we want something that isn't even tied to the saga. We want to see Jedi doing cool Jedi stuff. And they're like, all right, here's the Acolyte. You get a Wookiee Jedi. You've been asking for that since the Clone Wars. And people are like, no, I don't want it.
It's terrible.
So, yeah. I mean, and again, people, of course, are allowed to not like whatever they want. That's fine. I guess it's because I, get to do what I do and think too deeply into these stories is where I take exception, is when they say things like, when they misstate the purpose of the story, or say, like, I mean, I was reviewing Andor and I waited till I was done with all my reviews to see what other people were saying. And this one person, who I will not name, but they wrote that Andor was better than The Acolyte and Ahsoka because, unlike those shows, Andor has a theme. And, I don't know what subjects you guys, because I know there's some school teachers business going on here, but I'm pretty sure, junior high level English class, we know every story inherently has a theme. May not be a good one, may not even make sense, but it has one. You know what I mean? Yes. Like, so that's where...
That's just a silly comment.
That was digging into me when I was writing that article. So the negativity that you correctly identified, Jimmy, that it was me being mad at the fandom, as well as, because again, I'll bring heat on the studios all day, but there was I was mad. I wasn't just mad at the studios in that article. I was mad that people probably won't show up for a Star Wars movie the way we would like them to.
It's definitely a concern. Like, I do think you're right. I think that's where, like, some of my frustration came from when I'm reading this, because I'd start snowballing on me. I'm like, here's another person who doesn't love Star Wars, and and it's amazing that we get to sit here and talk, and you absolutely love Star Wars, and but it's the same thing for me too. It's like, I get so tired, and I've said this a couple times in our shows, like we never scream out loud about the things that we love. You know what I mean? Like Skeleton Crew just not getting the love that it deserves for just being a fun, campy Star Wars show, and
It's crazy.
no one's ever happy. And even the Acolyte, I mean, it had its problems. I mean, we're pretty positive here, but it definitely had some problems with structure and things like that. But overall, like you said, it gave us
we can get into
a lot of fun things. I mean, I love Force Fu. Like that's like I'm like, but then they showed us it all in the trailer, so it was kind of pointless because by the time we saw the first 2 episodes, I had watched both of those fights like 475 times, so I could have done the choreography with them. But yeah, so I guess, and a side note, I want to come to this. I know you have a point, but I want to talk to you a little bit before we're done. I'm going to write this down. You do all this stuff, right? We're super focused on Star Wars. I enjoy Marvel, and I used to take it all in, but I haven't been able to because of all the stuff we do for Star Wars. But I want to talk about where you think the level of fandoms are at for the big three: Marvel. You can even throw DC in there if you want, but that'll come towards the end, though.
Okay, hey, that sounds fun. Yeah, let me think. I do got to think on that one a little bit.
Superman's going to save DC. Here we go.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, well, the one thing that I will say about like sort of, and it was a problem with the Acolyte, problem with I think Obi-Wan Kenobi a bit, specifically the character Reva. It's I don't know what the official term is, but I always call it cards down storytelling. Like I feel like if they had opened Obi-Wan with that, just with the whole scene, explaining who Reva was, people would have felt much differently about that character throughout the arc of that series than they did by saving that reveal for, when they did. It was like episode 5 or 6 or what, like second to last or something. And I think that's the same thing that sort of happened with Acolyte by its non-linear storytelling. They should have just, it was a brand new era, brand new characters. I mean, that's where you go back to Lucas. He was like, this world is weird, so we're going to go from start to finish. And, I understand why it makes like a show interesting, especially if you have people who are, trying to like, it's what Lost did. Lost was all cards down storytelling, know.
Well, that's the thing. If you do it well, it can come off, but it's complicated because you got to get it just right to go that route to, have this thing that's revealed at the end. Like you've got to have enough interest that keeps people going. Other than that, like you said, the more linear storytelling, it's more straightforward. It's more less people in more, without having to work so hard. But I mean, if you nail it, the reveal is amazing. But if it doesn't come off right, if it's not structured right, like in the Acolyte, it just didn't work.
Yeah. I mean, and who knows the numbers, but look at like what people seem to talk about that they enjoy most from Star Wars. The Mandalorian. That is straightforward, straight linear storytelling.
Yep.
Andor, linear storytelling. I mean, and first season, very linear storytelling, very meticulously linear storytelling. And then Skeleton Crew is also a start to finish kind of show. Yeah. I think it's when they do the trying to keep things too secret, trying to create mysteries. I think all they give the audience, especially maybe an audience that has a motivation to want to do this, they just leave room for people to criticize it and to say things don't make sense because they just haven't been connected yet. You know what I mean?
Do you think that's the because not us, like I feel like we're all pretty close to the same age and we're used to, an episode each week for, most of the year for the school year. And then summertime comes and, there's no good TV shows on. We're watching reruns because it used to be, we used our imagination in between episodes. And now people just want to criticize them, but like, they didn't like something or didn't want to focus on something positive. Like, I mean, I thought the Acolyte had some really cool stuff. Again, I still don't think they landed, they didn't land it for me, but in some areas. But yeah, has binging ruined stuff? Has Stranger Things ruined fandoms because we got it all? I mean, my sister and I sat down and I think we just started it and then we finished it that day. We're like, oh, we just watched all of Stranger Things, like the first season or whatever. So has binging, you think that streaming has changed fandoms or people's inability to use their imagination and fill in some of the blanks in a positive way?
I have my gripes with streaming and especially that like binge model, like week to week. And again, the only reason Andor came out 3 episodes at a time is because the Nielsen ratings do it by minutes watched. You know what I mean? So if they were, if it were clicks or somehow, like if there was some other metric where, the minutes watched didn't matter, they would have done an episode a week. Because if you remember season 1, Andor had a slow build, but by the time you got to that One Way Out episode, everybody was talking about Andor, and then it just kept going up, since. And so, but then again, I also feel like once I saw the episodes, like the single story arcs a week, I was like, all right, I get it. I kind of get it, But I think the real problem with the Star Wars fandom, especially, is that they know too much. I mean, think about Return of the Jedi. They introduce the second Death Star, the Emperor, and all of a sudden there's this lady in a robe named Mon Mothma going, "Many Bothans died." And I was like, who is she? Like, we knew nothing about any of these things. 25 years to find out what a clone war was. And these people are mad. We don't know who Snoke is in the second movie. Calm down. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't reveal Grogu's backstory in the first season. Get at me in 10 years. We didn't know if Ahsoka lived until Rebels, until Dave Filoni was like, I can't keep her back. You know what I mean? Like, we had no idea. And I feel like, and I it's funny. This is sort of irony because I would always talk. People are like, we know too much in Star Wars now. And be like, no, it's fine. But we do kind of know too much in Star Wars because instead of thinking like, oh, how did Obi-Wan and they fought on a volcano? What was that like? Instead of like using our imagination to make this canon stuff work, now it's like, wrong. You got Star Wars wrong. It's not an equation to be solved. It's right. I mean, and again, like whatever you like. I never want people to think I'm saying that you should like this stuff. But when we talk about when we use objective terms for subjective things, like good, bad for a television show. I mean, again, I also cover Star Trek, and my second movie memory is seeing Star Trek 3, which, by the way, opens up with the death of Spock from Wrath of Khan into like 4 or 5-year-old me. That was news. I was like, I'm sorry, what? What happened? But I kind of forgot my point there because I relived that emotion. Just the idea that like whatever your favorite, like you ask a Star Trek fan, the old joke used to be there were 79 Star Trek episodes, 30 of them are good. But if you ask people, what 30 are good? You're going to never get the same answer. Like you might get City on the Edge of Forever. You'll get Amok Time. This is for all the Star Trek people. I'm throwing you guys some bones. But like, there are I wrote an article about what I thought was the universally loathed theme song for the 2000 era series Star Trek Enterprise. And I explained like it didn't work because it wasn't soaring chorals like James Horner, John Williams, Jerry Goldsmith writes. That Star stuff needs that kind of gravitas to ground its silliness. You put in soft rock. Yeah. Well, now they're guys in jumpsuits on sets, but people came for my neck. Like, you watch your mouth about Faith of the Heart. That's a good song. So there is no good or bad, but so that's the, like, if I have a message, and I think this is why I'm glad I found your video, because I think I'd gotten off track of sort of this aim, is I'm not trying to tell you what to like, what not to like. If you're going to read my criticism, read my reviews, I'm going to tell you why it's worth liking, or why it is, like what there is of substance in it. You know what I mean? And then you can judge for yourself how that makes you feel. Like, but it's there, and people who like it, they are Star Wars fans. People who don't like it and only like some other thing, as long as that other thing is Star Wars, they're Star Wars fans. It does not have to be this algorithm-based,
there's no right way
match. Yeah, you know what I mean? So that's why I'm so glad that I found that. That's why I think I needed to see that video. Not because, look, I do love when people talk about my work. Don't get me wrong. I am also one of my biggest fans. But I'm like, oh, get him, Jimmy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But I think that did help me realize that I was kind of getting caught up in that too. I think when we do what we do, and this is like, you get caught up in sort of this machine, and you kind of forget to take the step back to center yourself and be like, oh yeah, this is fun. it's whimsy.
See, you see there, Jimmy? We're helping.
Yeah, you're doing the Force's work.
I was kind of mortified rewatching that episode. I was like, I was being a beep. Like I
Oh,
was in
no.
the mood, and
I mean, again, there was the only sticking point for me was that you summed up my opinion of the movie wrong. Everything else you said, completely fair. Because although how many times did you notice that you would read something and then Mike would be like, well, he is kind of right about it. And he's like, well, he is kind of right what he says. But it was the tenor, it was the tone, the negativity. I didn't know I was being negative. You guys picked up on it, and I think I've turned it around. I mean, I got Andor. That always fills my soul as a former political reporter. Andor feels like a gift to me from Lucasfilm.
Oh, that was so good. So good. Let's diving back into a bit of the article here too. What's your opinion? How well do you think, like your whole thing was they need to develop these shows on streaming and then push them out and do movies. So what is your expectation for Mando and Grogu? Do you think it's going to be $1 billion movie, or is it going to be?
I think it will be. I think they should be happy if it's an $800 million movie, maybe $600.
I think they should be, thrilled if it is.
Because the one thing, like having done this for when I have the Baby Yoda moment that first season. I mean, other than maybe the first season of Stranger Things, I don't know of any streaming thing that really caught like the culture, the mainstream culture, like Baby Yoda. Baby Yoda was everywhere.
Yeah.
And like, here's the thing: if it was Mandalorian and Baby Yoda, that would do $1 billion easy. But they can't call it Baby Yoda because we'd kill him for it. Be like, that ain't Yoda. You're confusing people. Now, will it work? A year ago, I would have said yes. Yeah. But now all of a sudden, people are turning on Dave Filoni, talking about like Filoni, like he's the problem with Star Wars, which, I'm old enough to remember when he was the anointed Padawan of George Lucas. And, so I do think that taking time to develop characters, like whatever they do with, Obi-Wan or Skeleton Crew or Acolyte, they should have something ready to go for the characters that, make it through, whether it's, a spinoff or like kind of like what they did with Book of Boba Fett. Now, my controversial opinion here, especially for someone of my generation, I kind of didn't care about Boba Fett until that show. That show made him a person to me. Like he was a cool set of armor. He was a good bad guy. I knew everything I needed to know about him, though. He's gonna cheat. He's gonna cheat you. He's not really loyal to the Empire. I didn't care about anything else. But Book of Boba Fett, I was like, oh, he's got complexity. He wants, and again, made some strange choices, cards down storytelling. So, but they had that ready to go. And, maybe instead of $250 million movies, do like what they used to do back then. You remember backdoor pilots? You get like a 2-hour TV movie, and then all of a sudden you get a TV show of, I think they did that with Moonlighting. I think that's what Moonlighting was,
Yeah. I would, honestly, I'd love to see that. I mean, there's so many different ways they could take this, and you could make good programming for under $100 million. You know what I'm saying? And you could go in so many different directions. You could explore so many different avenues. Not everything is going to hit, but we're going to have so much content. As a Star Wars fan myself, I'm not going to be disappointed if I watch a 10-episode series that only cost whatever and it sucks. But you know what? There's another series coming out six weeks from now. You know what I mean? There's more. And eventually it is going to your point, something's going to hit. We're going to connect with someone. Something's going to work out. But yeah.
Well, look, I've got a friend who loves Star Wars as much. He's a prequel kid, loves Star Wars as much as anybody, cannot stand Andor, thinks it is the most boring thing, will not watch it, ate up Obi-Wan, loved the Acolyte. You know what I mean? Like,
I can totally understand that. I don't get it. Like myself, I love Andor. I love just about everything that they put out. I'm just that kind of crazy. But yeah, I can understand that. Like there's something for everyone. You know what I mean? Like the cowboy hat Star Wars. There's the more serious Star Wars. There's the movie, the spectacle. There's so much. There's so much for everyone, and there could be animation. Even more. Yeah, the animation. Yeah, forgetting about that. Yeah, I'd love to see it go that direction where just have more. And
But since
What about the people that complain about Star Wars fatigue, which is not something that I personally, I mean, I feel like they make it. I mean, how many Marvel movies have I gone and seen over the last 10 years? You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not even I like Marvel. Do you think that has anything to do with it? I mean, do you think that making more content is the way to fix it?
I think, well, I absolutely believe that the cure for bad Star Wars is more Star Wars. You know what I mean? Like, look at the prequels, the Clone Wars. Like, people didn't like the prequels as much. Then the Clone Wars came out, and they're like, oh, okay, I get it. You know what I mean? And I honestly, if they should have done that with the sequels. You know, there should have been some kind of animated show that covered that year. You know, yeah, there's still time, of course. And in fact, they'll probably wait until they do whatever the next one's going to be with them, and then I think that one they are absolutely giving it time because they understand how this cycle works now, and that in about probably 2030 maybe is when this new the new sequels
new trilogy
will be going, and by that time it'll be like these movies suck. They are not nearly as good as the J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson masterpiece that was the sequel trilogy. Like, I think that's what they're betting on for that. But yeah, I don't think it's fatigue. I think it's taking it for granted. I mean, to bring up Star Trek again, because Star Wars we didn't have till 1999 again, but Search for Spock led to Voyage Home, led to The Next Generation, and then I had 18 years of Star Trek on my TV, sometimes twice a week, 2 hours a week. And then when Enterprise happened, I was like, I'll catch the next one. I'm like, I'm busy, I'm in my 20s. It's not like we can just record TV, press a button and record TV. That can't do that kind of magic. So I'm just going to catch the next one. And there wasn't a next one. So I think fatigue is more like every Marvel fatigue movie, your Marvels, your Ant-Man, even Kraven the Hunter, which I don't like to talk bad about movies. I luckily work at a place where if I don't like something, I just don't have to write about it. Someone else will get it. So you'll notice there's very few articles about a certain Marvel-based Hunter movie that has been, except one that it has been a streaming hit since March. Like,
that's
top
what I heard.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
On all the different, like, people are either just checking it out for curiosity or they're going in with such low expectations. They're like, this is fun. You know what I mean? But I don't think it's fatigue. I think they're just waiting till they can watch it at home. And let's not forget, fellas, I love going to the movie theaters, but when I took the family to see Dune Part 2, it was like there were 4 of us there, and with snacks, it was as much as it costs for me to have all 5 streaming services ad free.
Yeah, it's insane. I have 3 kids, and they're all older now, so we don't do as much as a family anymore. But as they were growing up, man, like doing anything as a 5-person family is just out of your price range. Like, you're lucky if you can do something together once a month because it's that expensive.
Yeah. I mean, me and the kid, Marvel movies were our thing, but after Endgame, there's that thing like, well, I put childish things aside. But even like, just dragging him to the movies with me, which he'll do, it's a little too expensive for that. Like, hey, if you're not gonna have fun, I'm gonna bring a friend who's at least gonna probably enjoy it. You know what I mean?
No, I get that. I know, just Molly and I, but like I went and saw Ballerina by myself because she's like, yeah, no, I'm not, you know what I mean? So I'm like, so
the way the schedule worked out, I'm not gonna see Ballerina till Friday. I can't wait. So
oh my gosh, that's what I'm talking about with like. It's crazy to me how side thing, but like John Wick, it starts out as such a simple concept, but now the stories and the just the layers of this culture that they've built is insane to me.
They had that Continental series.
Yes, like now this Ana de Armas. I mean, she's great, and I don't want to give anything away, but I'm assuming there's going to be more. So. Of her, and who knows what's going to happen, and but yeah, and I just think that that's the thing about it is good writing, time. The expectations were low. Like as a man, I was just like, yeah, I'd kill someone. You're like, oh, you hurt my dog, I'll get you. Like, not quite to that extent, but
I mean, it is a relatable fantasy kind of situation.
So, but then they built this story onto it with all the rules and all the families and the way they take the second one. or they take this one and they add to that. It's just like, you know, I also did realize it was Len Weissman who wrote the Underworld series as well, which is one of my favorites. So he knows how to write strong female characters. So, you know, you got Kate Beckinsale and Ana de Armas. But anyways, so, but you just, those movies couldn't have cost that much, right? I mean, in comparison, because like what you're saying with budgets and things like that, like,
you know, I have no idea about the John Wick movies. I guarantee you, the second, all of them cost more than the first one. I'm certain of that.
Yeah.
You know, because that, I mean, but here's the thing: John Wick didn't have anybody tearing it apart. You know, I mean, I almost wonder. I'm never gonna look, but I almost wonder if in the depths of YouTube out there, if there aren't some videos now talking about John Woke. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
I almost like that's I hated it. I shouldn't have gave that one away. If someone is there like, oh, that's good.
Just pop up to
But there is this like this sort of negative engagement trap that people can fall into. And I think that when it comes to something like Star Wars that people do care about, I think that the bad faith can lead to good faith. You know, I've talked to people who don't love The Rise of Skywalker, and every time I watch The Rise of Skywalker, I love it more. Like I mean, and this has been true probably of every Star Wars movie, but what was seemed flawed before is duller, and what wasn't shines brighter. And you know, but there are people who like will go in believing that The Rise of Skywalker contradicts everything from The Last Jedi, and it doesn't. It really doesn't. And again, on CBR.com, I've written about how the sequels complement each other and like they only work as like a yes and to what happened in The Last Jedi. But these narratives take hold. And so people, you know, it does, you know, the one thing Jimmy is right about, was very right about, is that Star Wars, the discourse around Star Wars, there needs to be a refuge for people who want to have positive, constructive conversations where it's not full of, you know, empty criticisms like, oh, bad, it's bad. It's like, well, you're not going to say why is it bad? You know, talk about the thing you liked or didn't like, things that engage with it. And that's why, you know, I was happy to find you guys talking about me and reach out, because you're the type of voices that the fandom needs, like people.
And Explore the Force just started a Discord, so you know,
Yeah.
jump on there. There's plenty of opportunity to talk all about constructively and positively about Star Wars.
Yeah, and it does, and you know, this channel shows you don't have to like, people don't like everything. You know what I mean? Like there's disagreements, but it's no one's feelings are invalidated or no one's wrong. You're never wrong about liking Star Wars, you know. And I understand when I first saw The Last Jedi, and I was like, I can't wait to see my childhood hero be the superhero I know he can be. And it was over, and I was like I do with every new Star Wars movie since Return of the Jedi, I went, I need to see that again. And now here I sit, you know, before I started working at CBR, I had a really good position at another place that doesn't exist anymore after we all got let go. But but I remember when that was over, I was like, oh, that's it. I'm done. Where am I going to find and where am I going to land? You know, in this, like, there's so many people who can do this well, you know, and, you know, that's when, you know, one of the things I watched was in that sort of low moment. It was around 2022, was I rewatched all the Star Wars and got to The Last Jedi, and I understood. I was like, oh, you know, like what that portrayal of Luke in that movie does hit me in that moment. Like that you're never just the thing you are. You are always choosing to be that thing and working towards being that thing every day. And you can make a mistake. It can be your fault. It can be not your fault. And then, you know, if you decide to burn the sacred texts and burn down the Jedi tree, that's your decision. Or you can just decide to get up on your rock and force project a crate. I may be losing the metaphor. But again, you know, then you that's what the thing about these movies is that you, just like with John Wick, just like when we first saw the trilogy, they hit it for us. They hit things with us that we didn't know. Like that's why George Lucas made the prequels the way he did. He was giving those kids and us what we wanted in a way we didn't know we wanted it. You know what I mean? So you say you struggle with the prequels. Mike. I mean, the prequels, especially with Andor, especially with the Clone Wars now, you can see how the prequels are about how every institution, no matter how well intentioned, made to serve the people, is going to fail.
Right.
But good people will, given the chance, make the choice to be selfless, do the right thing. You know what I mean? And by tying that to the fall that we knew was coming, Anakin, with him wanting to be possessive and controlling, and that that, what greater metaphor for the moment we're in right now on any level, whether in our sphere or in my old one. There are the choices: make the selfless choice, the light side choice that helps other people, or the selfish, angry, hateful, fearful choice that only serves your own desires. And this stuff is timeless. Like,
it really is.
Yeah.
But I definitely need to revisit the prequels, because it wasn't until, I just, last year, a year or so ago is when I finally binged through all the Rebels and Clone Wars, and got caught up on everything. So now, with all that background, like when the Ahsoka series came out, I watched it before I watched Rebels, and then I watched Rebels and realized, man, I missed out.
Oh, Mike, how did that play?
I got to go back.
How did that play? What did Sabine play like, not knowing who she was?
It was interesting. I had enough information, periphery information, to know who those characters were and what, the story, the basic story of it. But watching it and not having all the information, having, all those seasons of Rebels, watching it, you could definitely see it was geared towards those people, the fans of Rebels, you know what I mean? And I didn't have all that yet. So I could clearly see that this was for somebody else, but I still enjoyed it. You know what I mean? Like, it still played well, but it didn't, I knew for sure that if I had all that, and the people that did have all that information, this was going to be their show. This is great. And I just had to enjoy it, on that lower level. But yeah, it's certainly interesting.
Now, Kanan's one of his favorite characters, though, too.
Yes.
So
Yes. After watching Rebels, now Kanan, that's my Jedi. He's my man.
Yeah.
So, oh my goodness. All right. So I guess, because we want to talk a little bit about your essays and stuff too. But before we get into that,
sure.
You do, you write all these do we have the worst fandom? Do we have the best fandom? Are we split down the middle? Because you do Star Trek, you do Marvel, you're in it way more than we are. And so, all I see is my circles in Star Wars are mostly positive. You know what I mean? Like, we just don't associate. Like, I used to follow this person and that person when I first started really getting back into Star Wars. And then the more I got to realize, like, these people are they're so negative, I stopped listening. So, where do you feel the Star Wars fandom is at compared to Marvel and DC? And
I mean, it's still the biggest one, which means that everything that we do is the big, like Marvel, DC, they're, again, respectable. Star Trek, we are passionate, but we are few. But Star Wars is, and it's because, like, Star Wars is the generational franchise. There is, from everyone from 1977 on has their Star Wars. That might be the movies, that might be some cartoons, might be the Ewok movies from back in the day. I mean, there is no wrong answer, but I think that with the general trend of, like, what social media does to us in just general, makes it feel maybe more intense, and there can be some pile on. I wrote an article way back for CBR, one of the first ones, maybe my first year, where I went back and looked up forums and posts that still existed from when Ahsoka debuted, from, like, back in 2008.
Oh, dang.
And you would not believe what they said about her. No, actually you would, because they said the exact same things about Rey, Mary Sue, this and that. And I wrote this article, and oh boy, did the certain not members of the not fans of Rey part of the fandom came down on me. But there are people that are just looking, to exercise those dark side impulses, which, that's fine. It's part of being, putting the stuff up in public. You are allowed, of course, anyone is allowed to feel the same way about my stuff as they do about Star Wars. But I am not a giant corporation. You can talk to me and I'm gonna talk back to you sometimes. And there's been some people who, there's some people who are on my social media who we started out not agreeing about Star Wars. And then I started talking about some Star Wars that they did like. And, I mean, that's the thing about the fandom. Like if someone's being a jagoff,
Pittsburgh term there, folks.
Yeah, you gotta, but you gotta just, find a way to check them. But first, you got to connect with them. Because if I just come out and be like, hey, you're being a jagoff, you're like, you call me a jagoff, you're a jagoff. But if I'm like, how about them Stillers? And you're like, how about them Stillers? And I'm like, hey, you're being kind of a jagoff. Oh, my bad. Like that's, I think it's just sort of how social media gets to us. And plus there is passion here. But yeah, we could be better. We could be better. A little nicer, a little kinder. But that's why, again, positive voices lead, what's the good people will come if we lead them. Isn't that what Poe says in Rise of Skywalker? Or good people will follow if we lead them. That's it's all right in the text there.
All right, so let's talk about your essays, man. When is that? Because I got to look through them. Of course, school ended. You sent them to me. We're still in school, so my brain was fried. But as the summer starts to pick up or wind down, I guess I don't know how the summer goes, but
wind up.
We'll start diving into those. How did that come about? Like, there's a lot in there, man. Like, it's just like a long time you've just been writing these essays, or is just like, man, I'm just going to do this and I'm going to dive into it?
So the genesis of the book Divided Allegiance: The Third Waves of Star Wars and Star Trek, now available on Amazon for anyone who's watching. The genesis of that was when I left that I had done some independent fiction publishing, and I put out a collection of my college writing, essays, poetry, stuff like that. Did a couple collections of short stories. And when I left my last website before, I was like, I have all this entertainment writing for 15 years that I've done. And I put it all together in an ebook called Swords, Spaceships, and Superheroes, Essays and Criticism in the Golden Age of Television. I don't know why my titles are so long, but they are. Well, maybe listening to me as much as I go on, you understand. But that book, if I tried to turn that into a print book, it would have been longer than all but one of the Game of Thrones books and very, very expensive. So this is the Star Wars, Star Trek section of that. But yeah, so there's some of these that go all the way back to, more than a decade ago. Any chance I got to write about Star Trek and Star Wars. Oh, look at that. What a handsome cover, as if the author himself designed it. Nice. But yeah, and then once I started working at the place I did before CBR, I have a bunch of stuff in there about like Mandalorian and Star Trek's, the seasons that were on when I was there. And then the continuation of that book essentially is on my author page at cbr.com. I, just picked up there. And I mean, I was writing about Picard's in the book. There is, I did no rewriting. I did a couple like typo things, but I tried to keep everything. And I removed like headlines, stuff done for like SEO things in some cases. But there was, I think for the Picard season 2 Picard season 2 ending, I think I did write a paragraph because I went from reviewing it on the one place to writing about it at the finale for CBR. Like that's how brief.
Wow.
Again, I was like, it's over for me. Oh no, actually I have a deadline. You know what I mean? So I was very lucky. And I didn't even like skip a season of Picard. But yeah, so that's some of that stuff though. Oh, one of the essays in there is one of the first things. It's a more politically themed piece where I look at the headline, if I'm not mistaken, is the Star Wars prequels warned us about this. Buy the book to find out what this is. You may be able to figure it out. But that was one of the first pieces that I sold, making the transition from politics all the time, meaning angry and sad all the time, to doing entertainment all the time, meaning sometimes angry and sad, but because the show made me feel that way.
Yeah. and not life.
Yeah.
Gives you an interest, because like I have a degree in political science and I went into teaching. So I was like, I'm out of here. So do you think that gives you a different, like Andor, man, you have to be eating that up. Like, I mean, there has to be so much
absolutely.
you covered, and we don't try not to get too political, but some of it just slaps you across the face with the things that are happening. I mean, you see references to Gorman with stuff that's happening in our country right now. And it's just like, oh my gosh, like, the cats kind of keep out. I know like Gilroy has to come out and be like, yeah, we weren't writing this about this administration.
Yeah.
Like, we wrote this 5 years ago. You know what I mean? Like,
it's just unfortunately it fits.
I mean, there was some stuff in the first 3 episodes that, I mean, not even allegory at this point, just what's happening.
Straight up.
100%. That is, I think, the secret weapon. That is the thing that has maybe made me find my niche, is that I am able to look at all these things, because that is again, just like you said, people are scared of politics, like and not just about declaring like, oh, I'm for this side, I'm for that side, I believe in this. Just the mention that politics exists. There are Star Wars and Star Trek boards on Reddit, which, that's a site that I wouldn't be on if I didn't have to be. But I'm not a fan of Reddit. But they, in their Star Wars and Star Trek things, there are rules, and one of them says no politics. And I'm like, I have some bad news for you, because
you can't talk about anything then.
Literally all of this is, I mean, both Star Wars and Star Trek especially are like so crucially tied into I mean, of course, especially genre stories are usually created as allegories to talk about things that, you
can't straight up.
I mean, Superman was invented by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster as a literal social justice worker. He in his first couple issues, he tore down a tenement run by slumlords, was always dangling billionaires out of millionaires back then out of windows, calling them bums. I mean, these things always had an agenda. And it is very disingenuous now when people look at certain demographics whose agenda may have not been prioritized in a narrative before, whether that be a gender-based, cultural-based, whatever. And they'll say that is now somehow different than the politics of the prequels, or even the politics of the original trilogy, which is basically, hey, are you against genocide and torture? Congratulations, you're part of the rebellion. I mean, it's not, you know what I mean? That's politics. And so, like being able to like, and the other secret weapon is that I am an absolute nerd. Almost dropped a bad one, but I am a really big nerd. And, I took all the lit crit classes in college, even when I didn't have to. You know what I mean? Like, I really love like digging into stories, and I kind of know how they, I know how they work. And I also know that like there is no right answer. All I'm never doing, like I could make an argument. I mean, maybe I could. And I could make an argument to the contrary of everything I've ever written using evidence from the text. Now, again, it would be me being disingenuous going, I've got to do the opposite of what I feel. But I'm just saying that it is possible to do so in a way that is neither bad faith nor incorrect.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's our whole legal system.
Yeah, in a way. I did some of the court beat too. So yeah. Yeah. But that's what makes it good, is like, if you get someone like, I remember a part of my prequel journey. No, it wasn't the prequels. I stand corrected. I started talking about the prequels, Batman Forever, which, by the way, I think I have an article up on CBR today about Batman Forever. I don't know, maybe tomorrow. It's 30 years old, if you guys want to feel old. But I was not a fan. I mean, Mad Mardigan's my guy, but I was not a fan of Batman Forever, and especially the one that followed, Batman and Robin. And then when I was at the University of Pittsburgh with the post 9/11 GI Bill, I met some kid. I was 30, 31, 32. I met some kid who was 20, and I, said something bad about those two Batman. He said, "How dare you? Those are my Batman." And then he proceeded to talk to me for like 45 minutes about why those movies are good. I left that conversation going, these movies are good. What am I? This one is Batman got to be funny again. Why can't he be funny anymore? And then Batman Forever, especially, he really opened my eyes, because he was also an English nerd. And he's like, let me tell you, the tortured soul. Have you ever heard of the Schumacher cut? Even back then.
It
But
is
yeah,
so great to talk to people from other generations too, because we too often get, we stick with our group of friends, or the people we associate with. We find this all the time on here. Like, we just did a review of the sequel trilogy, and
mhm.
I'm down on a lot of it, but we had much younger people, because everybody's younger than us, much younger people come on and talk to it with us, and every time we do that, they always open my eyes to something new. It's don't just
Yeah.
talk to your old buddies, guys. Just go out and meet some new people. Talk to some younger people.
And just
There's
remember, for these kids, that Star Wars is their Star
Yeah,
Wars.
exactly.
We
Hmm.
have our Star Wars. They have their Star Wars.
Right.
It,
And you're
you
gonna
know,
love Star Wars even more when you find out why they love this, and you're gonna realize, oh, okay, and it just opens the whole thing up for you.
and
It's
then if everyone was a little bit more accepting, then we could finally be rightfully snobby about how best our Star Wars is.
That's
Because let's
right.
be honest, there aren't too many people out here like original trilogy sucks. Boo. No one says that.
No.
I'm just saying, like, look, I like the prequels. I like the
Mhm.
sequels, but
A lot
original
of the younger
trilogy.
kids don't like it. Like my students are like, it's so slow and boring. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, like,
Oh,
you
oh
do like Star
no.
Wars? Like, oh yeah, I love it.
Oh
I'm like,
no,
okay,
Gen Alpha. We gotta
yeah,
reach Gen Alpha. We gotta, is that what they're
Yeah.
calling them?
I
Isn't that
yeah. I
think
their, is
think,
that
so.
the term?
Yeah.
good Lord,
I think so.
but oh my gosh. All right. Well, Josh, thank you, sir. I can't tell you. This has been awesome.
Yeah.
This is
We have
I,
to
crazy.
do
I
this
mean, are we
again.
done? Come on, it's been like 20 minutes. I couldn't have been talking that long, fellas. Please.
You have an open invitation to come back. You write another
Yeah.
article. You want to talk about it. Yeah, we usually go about an
Well, I'll
hour.
tell you what, if you guys are ever stuck on a topic, feel free to dig into. There's one I wrote about why I think Ray Palpatine is a better choice than Ray Nobody. What's some
Mhm.
other controversy that I've tried to stoke? Not controversy, but like
There seems to be a
contrarian
whole
take,
book.
maybe.
Yeah. There
Yeah.
seems to be a whole book
Um,
that we could reference for.
yeah, if only there was a whole book that you could turn to with maybe some contrarian takes.
Hey,
I am a
real
Yub Nub
quick,
truther. I don't,
you know,
I don't begrudge the new just celebration music, but real ones
yeah,
know
Yub
about Yub Nub.
Nubs. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, how excited are you for Strange New Worlds?
I
I know it's the
let
other star, but
let me say that I am not as excited. I'm not as excited as
really,
someone who hasn't seen the episodes already. I don't know why I would be that way, but I have a very strong feeling that around in about a week from today,
uh-huh.
my feelings will be I don't know why I'm being cagey about it. I think I can say that the review embargo lifts on the 17th. So my review for the first part of the season will be coming out. I can't actually say though how I feel
Uh-huh.
about it because of that
Yeah.
embargo.
Okay.
But
Mhm.
I can't say, but I am. Let's just say that my excitement level is extremely high,
Yeah,
and
I
I
could
can't
say
wait.
I'm
I
super
can't
looking
wait
forward to
to.
it. That
Um,
I know this is a Star Wars podcast, but if you're into the new Star Trek, the Strange New Worlds is fantastic. I
mhm,
freaking love that one. Most of the new Star Trek stuff that's come out is really good,
yeah.
but Strange
So,
New Worlds is
Mike,
I love it.
you're like me, divided
Hmm.
allegiance.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right,
yeah,
Jimmy, you Star Trek?
I've loved the movies. Like my dad and I have gone and seen all of them.
Okay,
I tried to
not the
watch the
shows.
one. Yeah, well, not the shows because I didn't have cable growing up. I had to go to
yeah.
Mike's house to
It was on
watch
UPN. It was on
Fox and things like that.
WPTT. Come on.
We
Well,
didn't
not
have that.
no. I had
Oh,
Channel 3 and Channel
Yeah,
6, I think, and 10, like
yeah.
CBS, NBC, and PBS, and that was about
Yep,
it.
that was it.
oh,
Um,
okay. See, we got
so yeah,
WPTT,
so
which
I
is
did
like
not grow up
18.
with those
Well, you
shows. I
lived in
grew
the
up with
city.
the movies.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. I do.
Loved the movies. Dad took me to Wrath of Khan, all that stuff. Remember being very confused as to, hey, why is Spock going in there? Like kind of where
Yeah.
you were at, like I'm like, whoa. I didn't know that happened in movies, but and I mean I even like the new stuff. I wish they would make more of them. I like
Yeah.
Mhm.
that. I did try to watch the I can't think of her name. She jumped
Discovery.
over from The Walking Dead. She came over.
Oh,
Oh,
yes,
yeah,
Eva
yeah,
Martin Green, Star Trek
yeah.
Yeah,
Discovery.
felt
Discovery.
like
Now this I can talk about. Star Trek Discovery was there is a lot. Same thing happening in Star Wars, happening in Star Trek with your bad faith critique, especially with a black woman protagonist
Mm-hmm.
leading your show. Even in Star Trek, famously a diverse cast situation for 50 years, but still.
Yep.
But the thing that happened to Discovery is they made a choice in the first like 18 or so episodes, there is a secret that explains why this doesn't feel like Star Trek. Like if you know Star Trek, you're like, this doesn't feel like Star Trek.
Yeah.
And people are like, they effed it up. They messed up Star Trek. No, they were again, cards down storytelling. Start with the, hey, look at this guy. And then go. And people were like, oh no, the Star Trek people, they're being duped. Like it would have changed everything. So I will say this. I know people either love the first 2 seasons because that's where it's like super serialized, real gritty, real like intense. And then the next 3 seasons, there's a bit of a time skip, we'll say. And then it's very much like season episodic adventures with a more positive sort of spin to it. I mean, still heavy moments, but
I loved it. There's so many feelings. Start watching Star Trek Discovery. If it doesn't bring a tear to your eye, almost every episode, like I loved it.
I reviewed it for season 5, the final season, and I realized that I hadn't watched it. So the reviews that are in the book that you guys may have read for Star Trek Discovery, I would watch the episode and then I would watch it one more time before I wrote the review. And that was the last time I saw that episode till I rewatched it. And when so doing my first rewatch of Discovery, I was like, oh my God, it's a Star Trek show. Of course, it's much better the second time around. Just like Star Wars, like there is repetition. You have to kind of meet it halfway. And I think that Paramount has made a huge mistake in putting, because it is not The Mandalorian. Star Wars and Star Trek, the fandom is not the same. Like your Celebration crowd would eat your Star Trek Las Vegas crowd. You know what I mean? They would just consume them. So I think Paramount should be putting these new shows on Amazon, Netflix, all that. Like, don't lock them behind. Like, put the old stuff on Paramount Plus. People will show up for that. But
I would love it.
Yeah,
like, I think I'd go through and binge through this stuff if I had access to it. I mean, heck, the first Comic-Con we ever went to, Mike and I, was a
Star Trek
Comic-Con
convention.
What was that? Treasure Lake or something like that? Like
no, it was. I think it was in Altoona. Yeah.
Colm Meaney was the
Colm Meaney.
Yeah.
He's a union man.
Yeah. So it was pretty awesome. Like I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but yeah. So yeah, definitely not a hater on Star Trek. Like I like it all. Like if it's nerdy, Harry Potter, you name it.
Yeah.
If it's got a good story, good versus evil, I'm always down for it. So
Lower Decks is really good too.
Lower Decks is very funny. Prodigy. I mean, like the Clone Wars, there are some bits that are very much for kids, but Prodigy is the Voyager sequel. If you wanted a Voyager sequel, it's the one you've been waiting for. Don't walk to Netflix to watch it. I might even be gone by now. I don't know, but Prodigy is great. And I mean, like, here's the thing. When I went to see the Avengers, when I was a kid, I got this script at the first Comic-Con I ever went to out by Monroeville Mall. I forget what that place is called. It has a name. It's my Yinzer memory is failing me. But I was out there and I got this script that was supposed to be James Cameron's Spider-Man script. I'm not sure if it was. I'm not sure if it was the actual script or if someone like read his script treatment and wrote their own script. But either way, I read that B word and I sat on my bedroom floor and was like, we're never gonna, if James Cameron can't make Spider-Man, we're never gonna get this stuff. So whenever I go to a movie like Spider-Man or Superman or Star Wars or Star Trek, I am not supporting that movie. I am supporting the next one, the attempt for the next one. Because if they don't get it right, they'll get another chance.
They gotta try again.
You know what I mean? And this will be the right movie for somebody, just not me. They get another chance. And I think if we in fandoms looked at it that way, like maybe this one isn't for me, I'm supporting the next attempt. And maybe this one will just make our gang a little bit bigger.
I mean,
I think if you look at it that way,
with Last Jedi and Solo, people not wanting to see Solo, and I think they've missed out.
Solo was so much fun.
So, it's my favorite.
I think it's the best movie. If someone's like, I've never seen a Star Wars, show them Solo, because I feel like if you're not into Solo, you've just saved yourself 9 hours.
We recapped that one too because it was early in our first season of the show. I hadn't seen Solo since it first came out and had bad feelings about it. And then Jimmy said, "Watch it," and we watched it. And I came on here. my plan was to shoot holes in all, like, it's Jimmy's favorite movie. I was gonna shoot holes all through it, and we started out. And I'm like, dude, it's good. I can't, it's nothing I can say.
Yeah.
It's so good.
What?
I don't know what happened when I first saw it, but that second watch through, I'm like, oh my god!
I
this
told you,
movie's
Mike,
great.
it's the
Yeah.
sort of negative vibe, that negative, it's
Yeah,
the bad
it
feeling
really
about
is.
this, that people
Mhm.
somewhere you just picked up through osmosis that Solo was bad because it wasn't
Yeah.
making money the way it should, or whatever
Mhm.
reason it was, or because the director changed, and people think, oh, that must be bad then. Again,
Yep.
not in a vindictive way, but just in a way that, like, people who aren't us, that
some of it was
overthink about this stuff. Some of it
Mhm.
was vindictive, of course,
Yeah, sure.
but especially post Last Jedi, yes.
Yeah. Crazy
And that's
factor.
the thing. That's why I will get up the House of Mouse is behind any chance I get, because Bob Iger's out here talking about, oh, Solo. Man, you're the one who told Kathleen
You
Kennedy
screwed
to
it up.
make a Star Wars movie 1/3 faster, or 2/3 faster than George Lucas made them. George
Yeah.
Lucas took 3 years, and you want one every year? What do you expect, Bob Iger?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Like, he's the one that, like, for shareholders, makes her announce Lando, Rangers of the New Republic, all these things that don't happen. And then,
Yeah.
she's probably like, oh, this is not good, or this is not ready. And, and then they're like, oh, Kathleen Kennedy can't run a studio. I mean, meanwhile, name 5 of your favorite movies. If you're my age,
She was involved in one of them.
if you're 25 or older, name 5 of your favorite movies. She's involved in at least 3.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
put some respect on Kathleen Kennedy's name.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she
no
definitely
doubt.
was
In this house.
Mhm.
You understand me? And
We're
close
with
your
you.
door. We're not gonna air condition the whole outside. It's a little Pittsburgh accent.
She's getting real
There you go.
Yinzer-ish in here.
Yeah, keeping it local. One of my greatest achievements since I've started doing this job was I did get to interview Ming-Na Wen, also a Pittsburgh native.
Yeah.
And at the very,
Really?
you can actually see this on my Instagram. You guys linked on my Instagram. There's a video where I got her to do the Pittsburgh accent with me a little bit.
I'll
It's really
check
one of the
that
greatest moments
Nice.
Need to
in
hop
my
on an
professional
episode
life.
of Pittsburgh Dad or something.
Yeah.
Get in there
Oh
with
man, if look, I've heard that Curtis, I think is his name, is a very nice guy, but I mean, he took the bit we've all been doing. We're all just imitating our mothers, Curtis. You know it. Turned it into a job. I'm out here talking about Star Wars because you're doing all the yin stuff. That could be me.
Oh my goodness. I do. Okay, I have one last question, and I do have to go. You guys can stay on if you want. Do you
No,
think
I don't want
that
to.
do you think that the Fantastic Four and Superman can regenerate? Because I know that, like, Tom Cruise wanted to be the savior of cinema, and I love the Mission Impossible films. I mean, and you talked about negativity. They had to change the title and stuff like that. But I mean, saw that movie. I'm sitting there sweating during most of it. Do you think
So
that
hilarious that they never learned the part one thing?
Can someone jumpstart? Can those two movies jumpstart the $1 billion movies again?
So I don't think we're gonna get $1 billion back to back. I mean, it would be great if it was that kind of 1-2 punch. I do think Fantastic Four will be successful enough that Disney and Marvel can call it a win, because the Fantastic Four is there. Like, people love Pedro Pascal. I think the marketing has been good. It's very much its own thing. It's like, hey, do you know what's going on in Marvel? These guys don't. They're all by themselves. Come see them. So I think that, like, that's a nice on-ramp for people. So it might get some more casual moviegoers who are like, oh, I'll wait to binge all the Marvel stuff. Superman, though. I think Superman might get there, and I'll tell you why. I did an interview with Kevin Smith when he brought Dogma through. And he was very kind to make, like, he literally gave me the 10 minutes he had between the one showing and the second before he went out to just talk and do Q&As, like, just truly generous. And we were talking about it, and the Superman trailer just come out. And I said to him, like, hey, did you see the Superman trailer? And he said this. He said that when times are bad, or at least he's always heard that when times are bad, Batman, or when times are good, people love Batman. And when times aren't so good, people love Superman. And I don't want to speak for anyone else, but it feels like this is Superman's time. So I think that the sort of vibe that James Gunn's going for, and the way the lightness this movie seems to have, I think might be exactly what a Superman movie needs. So, like, that one could get close to $1 billion. And honestly, I don't think Marvel's going anywhere. There was news just yesterday that Warner Brothers is splitting up again after just merging. They need it. Like, it's go see Superman. because they're broke. Same with Star Trek. Go watch Star Trek because they're broke. Like, I don't know how these people are so rich, but they're broke, but they are. But yeah, that's like, you know, that's the only thing that worries me. And that's why the article was written in the first place. Is Tony Gilroy said in that one interview, Disney told him streaming is dead. No, you want it to be dead. You want to go back to making having record-setting box office every year. It's not going to happen unless the economy gets better. Like, you don't control that. So don't kill streaming. You spend all this money to finally make it profitable. You know, I think what they're going to do now is these next 2 years are going to see if it can stay profitable without like a lot of new content. Like, we're going to get Ahsoka on the Marvel side. We're getting Ironheart. And I think there's like maybe 1 or 2 more Marvel shows in the offing. And I think that's going to be it, because they want to see if they can keep profitable without having to create new stuff. Because the vast majority of your streaming, like if you look on those Nielsen charts, the old stuff is always the highest watch, because one, there's more minutes to watch, and that's what people go to streaming for. Like, people go to Disney Plus to watch their old favorites, not to check out the new things. They'll check out the new things, and those new things might become the old favorites at some point. But the executives of the world in Hollywood don't have the patience for that.
Yeah, I mean, short-sighted.
Every Star Trek show ever, you know, Star Trek the first one, and then like Star Trek the first one wasn't a huge hit, went into syndication, was the highest rated syndicated show for 25 years. The other ones, they were pretty successful, but diminishing returns with each series. They hit Netflix. They're all classics now. They got the George Lucas treatment. Like, it is the sacred texts. And then I think these new shows, like, they are now being picked apart. They're not, you know, but the way the audience finds the show, whether it's Star Wars, Star Trek, whatever, is if they can find it. Locking them behind this paywall where they have to go looking for it. You have to go to Paramount Plus to find it, go to Disney Plus to find it. If you don't know you're looking for it, you're not going to go. That's why Netflix and, you know, Amazon, and I mean, again, I don't know if they do syndication anymore, but that's where, like, you could find stuff. That's where I think we're lacking. That's why the fandoms are becoming stagnant, because they don't have that growth. Where people used to just find it and be like, oh, what's this about? And feel welcome joining.
Yeah. You know,
like, I felt welcome joining you guys.
Yeah. There's about 6 different things that we talked about tonight that could just go off in a tangent of their own show. I think we need to rebrand into something that's more more open. But this was great. I mean, Josh, I hope we can have you back on sometime.
I would love to. It was a breeze. I can't believe it's been. I see the timer. I can't believe it's been that long.
I think we've just scratched the surface too. I mean, we could come on here in a more.
We wasted so much time talking about me and my book, Divided Allegiance: The Third Waves of Star Wars and Star Trek, now available on Amazon.com.
But yeah, we'll have to have you back on, and maybe we'll come with this an outline of where we want to go instead of. So I mean, this was fun.
You can't pin me down, Mike,
and everything like that.
You'll be like, let's talk about the Rise of Skywalker. We're like, no, here's why Attack of the Clones is a cool detective story.
But it all
here's why the Genosians are great villains, Mike.
It all fits together. It all works towards it.
I'm gonna have to email Jimmy on the sly, find out what parts of the prequels you don't like, and then I'll just write specific articles just to you.
All right. I hope others will like this too.
There we go. All right. Well, Josh, thank you, sir.
Thank you guys for giving me the business, and then letting me come on and defend my honor.
Of course. Anytime.
Yeah. It's a lot of
fun. All right,
fun.
folks. Thanks for joining in. We'll see you guys next week.
See ya.